Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Patty Russo, and this is Let's Talk Pets on Society Bites Radio. Today, we welcome back Kathy Pobloskie from Lost Dogs of America. And Kathy is going to talk with us today about some of the things that owners focus on when their dog is lost and why they shouldn't focus on it, and then some other things about stories of reunions and some things that had they thought differently, maybe it would have turned out differently. So welcome to the show, Kathy.
Hi, Patty. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so
Um,
I thought this
and
was interesting that you wanted to, the probably happened concept, because that is, everybody likes to jump to, oh, this happened or that happened, and not having any clue whatsoever.
right, and I think it's part of the way our brain works when we are in a panic. Our dog is missing and we're in a panic, and so it's really easy to jump to a conclusion without really taking into account all of the evidence. And so I thought I would just start with an anecdote of a dog, a case that I worked on several years ago, which was not too far from my home. And so I was able to go down there, and the dog had gone missing, I think, sometime during the night. And I went down the next morning, and it had rained, and just briefly in the morning. And so as I was looking around the house, there was paw prints in the dirt close to the house, and it had the rain it had just rained, so they were very fresh. And so I pointed out to the owner, I said, look, it looks like your dog has already come back, which would have been what we would have suggested anyway, was that a lot of dogs do come back on their own. And then they maybe get a little bit frightened, or they sense their owner's panic, so that they go run and hide again for a little bit. And I said, look, it looks like your dog has already been back, so let's put the scent items out in the food, and just, let everything be quiet and see if he comes back again. And this was in an extremely kind of rural, wooded area. And it was like she didn't even listen. She immediately started to speculate that an old lady that lived about 5 miles down the road, that had rumored of being an animal hoarder, must have, like, I don't know, swooped in her helicopter or something and picked up this dog. I don't know how. This was you had to go down a very, very long wooded driveway to get to this place, and this lady was, like, apparently 95 years old and used a walker, and but that was where her mind went right away. It was, this lady probably has her dog, and she was going to rush straight down there and accuse her, and then she was going to go to the police. And, well, when all was said and done, by the time she got home, the dog was back already, because it had just been hiding close by.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of why, it was one of those things where she didn't want to just be logical, or she couldn't be logical because her brain wasn't in that mode. And so that's one of the things that we always try to work on, is trying to keep people calm and focused and thinking logically, because then they have I'm not saying that we never, things can't happen that are really weird, because they do happen. But we do find that if we can keep people focused on what probably happened to their dog by looking at all the evidence, that they have a lot better chance of recovering them safely.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, I'm
Yeah.
sure you have lots of stories about that too.
Well,
Um,
I think when, when I said probably happened, I was thinking on the other end of the spectrum, when the owners jump to a conclusion like this one did. And we've talked about this before, but I just see it happen every day or more than once a day, where somebody says, oh, my dog was stolen. I know it was
yeah.
stolen. And that is, not, I don't even know if I can say that's happened in 6 years on one hand. It
Right.
just doesn't
Right.
happen. But so many people
Right.
want to say that, and that affects, like you said with this person, it affects how they go about searching for their dog, and it
Right.
affects them staying calm and thinking logically.
Yes. Absolutely. And especially when a dog seems to, like, disappear into thin air and there's no sightings, instead of really thinking about what probably happened, which if it was a small dog, it was far more likely that the dog was picked up by a good Samaritan really quickly. They just assumed that the dog was stolen. Or one of the things that we now have added to our advice, and we just had another case in the past week, when it's a small terrier type dog, or a dachshund, something that, one of the dogs that really likes to hunt rodents. Even Yorkshire Terriers, even though we kind of think of them as foo-foo dogs, I mean, they're still a terrier, and they still like to chase chipmunks and mice and all that sort of stuff. If they disappear without a trace, and the owner's doing a really good job of flyering, and they just can't seem to get any sort of sighting whatsoever, I always recommend now that they consider that their dog is stuck somewhere. And we just had one this week. Dog was stuck in a tree trunk. We've had several, and I know my own dogs. I have two little terriers like that, and they're always sticking their head up the drain pipe trying to get a chipmunk, And we've had several dogs with stuck in drain pipes or stuck in places, stuck under the floorboards at a barn, just things like that. We actually had a dog. It wasn't a small dog, but we had a dog today. Fell down an old barn silo. And so there again would be one where, you wouldn't have a sighting of it, and it's really easy to assume that the dog's been stolen. But, it's fallen somewhere, it's gotten stuck somewhere.
Yeah. We've had cats stuck in the drain things, whatever they call them here, we've had cats. I don't know if we've had any dogs. I'm not really sure that I can think of one of those, but I can see it where you live more so, than where I am.
Right. I think because we have those little chipmunks that just are driving the dogs crazy because they're, they're kind of cross between a squirrel and a mouse. They're a little smaller than a squirrel, and they're pretty easy to catch.
Right.
And they really work at it. So.
Yeah, and there's I hadn't thought about that because, we don't have barns and such like that as we did back home where I used to live in New York, there were. And so they could find a lot of little hiding spots here and there. That makes sense. Because I always wonder down here too, how does a pet just disappear without a single sighting? And I just always figure with the little ones, the cute little ones, somebody's picked it up. And it is, either doesn't know what to do. They have a good intention, but they don't know what to do. They're not on social media, whatever, and they don't know how to go about anything. Or they decided they're going to keep the dog. We just had a little terrier, and I thought I was waiting to see what your story was because we just had one returned last week that was missing for, 3 or 4 weeks. It just disappeared without a trace, and we just figured, it's a cute little Yorkie. Somebody picked it up, and we're going to find it. You're going to find it. But it just never came up. And then one day, I guess they took it to the vets, and the vets scanned it. And thankfully they did. Now, I don't believe they took it to the vet to be scanned. They took it to the vets for, shots and whatever. And it had a chip, and it was far away. I mean, it was up, quite a ways north of us, and it's not like those people even lived here. They were going through the area and saw the dog and picked it up, and off they went. So those things happen, but we don't want to focus on those things because we want to focus on hopefully finding it nearby first.
Yes and but you're right. Like, so if it's a small dog and it's an urban area and it just seems to disappear without a trace, I mean, that's that's what we get the people to focus on as well too. Is that probably the dog was picked up, especially if it's friendly, with that, at all friendly, and it just was out near the road and then it has just vanished. It's probably been picked up. And go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say it's sad when the little ones do disappear. I was looking at our album of the small breed dogs today, and there's just, oh my gosh, so many of them. And I wonder, maybe some of them did get stuck somewhere and they weren't found and something bad happened to them. But I always figure with the little ones, someone probably found it and just decided that it was theirs now instead of, giving it back. Yeah.
Yep, instead of giving it back. Yep. Yeah. Well, when and one of the other things, and I don't know if it's so much the case where you are, but we have so many people when their dog goes missing that they assume that it's been killed by a coyote. And
Yes.
again, we don't say that it never happens, but it happens so infrequently, and you almost always find a body when a dog has been killed by another predator because coyotes don't eat dogs.
Right.
And so they kill if they do kill a dog, it's a territorial dispute, and usually the dog is in their own yard, and there's some kind of territorial dispute, and the coyotes are trying to claim the territory, or the dog is defending its territory,
Mhm.
and they may end up. At the short end of the stick, the dog may end up on the short end of the stick in that situation. But again, the body will be found.
Right.
So if the dog has disappeared without a trace, it is very unlikely that it was killed by a predator because
Right.
the dogs are predators as well. So predators just generally tend to not eat other predators and leave no remains.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
We
uh,
it's funny because, well, it's not funny, but it's interesting, I guess should have been the word. How the dogs will disappear for quite a long time, and then all of a sudden, there they are, they're spotted. And whether it's
mhm.
because they've just become so hungry, they've decided it's time to come back. I don't know, but we just had one, a dog got hit by a car, and the man that called me to tell me he was sure that the dog would not survive. And I really wasn't holding out a lot of hope after talking with him that the dog could survive being hit. There were pieces of the vehicle left on the side of the road. That's how bad it got hit.
Wow.
And the dog was missing for a couple weeks, and people were out on, the four-wheelers, and it was heavily wooded area, and there's so many places the dog could have hunkered down, and, there were no sightings, and then all of a sudden there were sightings, and, the dog was okay. It survived, and how it did, you got to wonder, but
Yeah.
the one
Hmm.
thing he told me, the man that called me to tell me he saw the dog get hit and take off, was that, people should be watching for buzzards. We have the buzzards down here in Florida. And so when you said if a dog got eaten or attacked by a coyote, you don't see that. People say it all the time, but you would see that, especially how you
Yep.
mentioned that there would be a body there. And yeah,
Yep.
I've heard of cats or something being attacked, but we don't know if it was a coyote. It could have been a bobcat. We have bobcats here too. You just don't know. There
Right.
are predators, so,
Right.
but I don't
Right.
believe that it's coyotes as often, because they like to
Yeah.
eat rodents, not,
Yes.
you know.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Rodents and rabbits, things like that.
Mhm.
That's generally what they eat.
Yeah.
And so we just see it, and unfortunately, when it does happen, which again is usually not a lost dog, which lost dogs tend to not be territorial at all. They tend to be scared, and they're shy, and they're hiding, and they're avoiding predators, and they're avoiding people, and uh, so when a dog and a coyote do get into an altercation, it's almost always in the dog's yard, or sometimes it's even when the owner is walking the dog.
Yeah.
And but it makes the news, right? And
Hmm.
it's a big story on the news here, and then everybody just gets all up in arms, and then the next time a dog goes missing, it's like, oh, the coyote probably got your dog too.
Hmm.
And it's unfortunate because it makes people give up before they even begin, and their dog is probably just fine. and
Right.
and if they just would stay focused on flying and doing the other things, there's a good chance their dog is going to be uh, you know successfully reunited.
Hmm.
But that's one of our most frustrating